and welcome to the Transform Your Wellness podcast. I'm Karen Hagberg. I'm a coach who help people transform their wellness and life and help them create more balance, ultimate wellness, and a life they love. The Transform Your Wellness podcast is heartfelt conversations with incredible people who are contributing and following their passion and soul purpose. It's conversation with people who have not only transformed their own life, but also contribute to the world by helping others transform as well. Today, I have got the pleasure to introduce you to Delshad Xenatis. I recently connected with her in the online world and discovered that not only does she follow her soul purpose, she's also very passionate about it. And we also have quite a few things in common, interest area in common. So this lovely woman has so much to share. And today we are going to talk about how to develop your superpower and become a self-doubt crusher. So saying that, Delshad, welcome here today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So welcome again.
Hi. So yes, I'm Delshad Xenatis. I live in San Diego, California. I have a wonderful husband who's Greek. We have two daughters. One is almost 5, coming up on April 1st, and I have a 6-year-old. So I've been here in San Diego probably since 95. And before that, I got to live in Southern California. And yeah, I've been fortunate enough to live around the world. My father was an engineer. So I lived in Saudi Arabia and Canada and New Jersey and Venezuela. So I've been very fortunate and I love to travel.
Yeah, so you're used to traveling and seeing different part of the world. And I guess that's one thing we've got a little bit in common as well. So how did you find that when you were younger, being on their kind of traveling foot and seeing different places? How did you cope with that?
Well, I think when you're little, you kind of roll with the flow, right? And for the most part, I think it's because of my parents. They're wonderful. They always made it so exciting to learn a new culture or learn a new language. I was an only child, so it was a little lonely, because I always had to, every time we bounced somewhere else, I had to make a new friend. But that made me pretty good at making new friends. I think that it's good. I really enjoyed it. I think I'm a well-rounded person because I'm more understanding of other people. I recognize different languages and I love food all around the world.
Well, that's another thing we got in common then. So what's your favorite food?
Oh, well, since I married a Greek, man, his mother makes the best Greek food. We also love Mexican food in this house. Living in San Diego, we're right by Mexico, so we can get some really authentic food. I love Persian food, Thai food. And because we lived all these places, I got to meet, other families that were from there, and their families always had these traditional type foods, and it was fun, so fun.
So what's a traditional Persian dish? I actually don't know much about.
It's a lot of rice dishes. See, because I haven't told you this, I'm adopted. So I was adopted into a Mexican American family. So I didn't grow up with lots of Persian food, but when I do get it, it's lots of chicken, rice. They use a lot of fruits and dried fruits and nuts, and they have kebabs, and it's just delicious. So yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your passions. What is it you love doing?
What do I love to do? There's so many things. So I grew up playing soccer. So I have a huge passion for soccer. Around the world, we call it soccer in the US, but around the world, it's football, right? So I love football. I could watch it all day long. I love music. I grew up in choir. So music stools my soul and it kind of brings me back to center for sure. What else? Photography. That's a huge blessing in my life. I like to share. Being an introvert and being more shy, I was able to share what I saw through my eyes and be able to kind of share my feelings through photography. So those are some of my really major passions. And self-care. I think being mindful and being connected with yourself and the people around you. Those are definitely my passion.
Yeah. And there's quite a few that we've got in common here too that I didn't know when I first met you. And one of the things was photography, which is something I love myself. I've been a kind of, shall I say, a hobby photography person since I was, I remember I got my first camera when I believe I was 10. And since then,
Yeah,
I have, when I was around 18, I used to develop my own. I was in the dark lab in Sweden,
that's
developing my
awesome.
own black and white photos. And I even, I don't know if you know the technique where they used to do it way back when they couldn't get colored photography. So you actually painted the photos with a little bit of color. Have you seen that?
I've seen it, but I haven't done it myself.
Yeah, I did that years ago, and yeah, I love photography too. My camera is everywhere, and I actually started, which you don't know, Delshad. You have to go and check it out because I used to sell a little bit of photography too,
Mm-hmm.
but because I'm taking photos all the time, and people started commenting, so I thought, I'm going to bring two of my passions together. So I used
Yeah.
my photography to put quotes together with them. And I've actually got a website
Oh,
that is dedicated for just that. And I help people also develop their own kind of quote photography and quote images. And
I would love to talk to you about that.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it's just a hobby that it's funny how you do things. And recently I've just realized, and I've that it's such a big interest area of mine, and now moving into video a little bit as well, and love doing editing of that. But I have been I often help people to take photos sometimes for the websites and stuff like that, just for a bit of fun
Oh,
and
we'll
helping.
have to talk for sure offline.
Yeah, that's right. And music is another one that I love as well. So do you sing or play instrument, or you love listening to music?
Um, I definitely sing along. I used to sing. I was in choir probably from like second grade here, which is elementary school, all the way through probably my senior year of high school. I didn't do it as much in college, but I got to go to New York City and sing in Carnegie Hall, and it was
Okay.
fantastic with my choir. And man, that's an experience I will never ever forget. I will never forget it was such an honor, and we worked really hard for it. We're just kids and worked
Yeah,
really hard to get there.
yeah.
And so I still love to sing. I sing to my girls every night. We pick a song. And can you still see me?
Now
Oh
I can see
no.
you. It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. You're
Okay.
back.
Uh, I'm back. You can see me. Perfect.
Yeah, it's all good.
So um yeah, so I sing to them every night, and I feel like it's getting them into music. So we do everything, chores to help ourselves feel better, to get you energized, to work
Yeah.
out, all of the things.
And I think that's so important to do with kids. It's just so important. So that's one thing that we also got in common, because I used to sing in choirs as well.
This is just
I
fantastic. I
know.
can't believe it.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? And I always follow my instinct when it comes to which women or people I connect with. So,
Same
and
here.
then when I start talking to people, I go, wow, how is that? And I tell you, too, you also said that you were a bit of an introvert. And I can honestly say I'm very much an introvert too, even though I can be in front of camera and I can be out there. I used to do theatre when I was younger, but I'm very much an introvert.
Well, when you think about introvert, it doesn't mean that we're completely closed off. It just means we recharge our batteries and come to
Abs-
center quietly, alonely. We need that time to recharge. And
yeah,
we may not speak up in a meeting right away, like the alpha personalities that are constantly talking. We sit and listen and absorb and think things through, and then we
yeah.
participate.
Absolutely. It's more that thing that I need a lot of my own time. And if I'm in front
Yeah.
of people or running events, I get absolutely drained and I got to recover for a week after I run a wellness retreat, for example. It's quite ironic, isn't it? I need
Yeah.
recharging and they walk away feeling amazing.
And you're like, oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
crowds, all
Yeah.
the effort. And it sounds like to me, you might be a little bit of an empath too, where you
Yeah.
feel the energy and it gets sucked out of you. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And when you say soccer too, you were saying soccer. I'm actually used to soccer because I'm from Sweden, so it's all about soccer there. So moving to Australia, being very confused with the Aussie rules footy, which I still don't understand at all. So to me, being from Europe, it's all about soccer, or what we call football. In Swedish,
Right.
it's called football. So it's
Yeah.
rather confusing there, but yeah.
I played from 8 years old all the way to like 34.
Oh,
I played with
wow.
like a co-ed women team as I got older because I just missed
Okay.
it. And it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to ask you because we're going to talk about how to develop your superpower and become a self-doubt crusher. But before we get into that, I want to ask you how your past experiences has brought you to do what you do now. I guess if there's any challenges you've had that have made you grow, any realizations you've had from it, learning. So,
Well, I mean, we all go through a ton of experiences throughout our life, and some can be more difficult than others. Me being different, growing up in Southern California, I looked different, I was teased, and self-confidence wasn't always something that I had. Then, you get a job and there's always someone smarter than you, someone maybe more experienced than you, and your self-doubt starts creeping in again. And I was just not living to my full potential. I just knew it. Then I started to find a passion, right? I loved photography and I started shooting, and I shot on my own and I shot second shooter, and but I kept comparing myself to somebody else. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm worth it. I'm awesome. And I can learn whatever it is that I may not be good enough at. So those things really sparked my interest in learning. Well, wait a minute. What is this? Why do I feel this way? It's got to be mindset. It's what I'm thinking about, my belief system. And I had to squish all that. Then the big thing that hit me was when I had kids. How am I going to teach my little ones how to be their authentic, organic self and be happy with all of themselves if I'm not? So
yeah.
that really, really got me moving. And then, of course, as I got older, I was like, I don't really care what other people think. And I learned to have boundaries. I learned to have a better outlook on myself. And I started changing the way I talk to myself. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? How we learn from our own, I suppose, challenges, and that you became aware of how you were thinking, and then once you discovered that, you realized you got to make a shift there. So, what were some of the things once you kind of at that point where you realized that this obviously is not working for me? I've got to change it. Can you tell me a little bit how did you actually do that? Like what did you do to kind of address the mindset and change that around?
Well, first I started studying the brain. I started researching. I'm like, when do we start developing these things? And what made us believe in it? And to be honest, I started being my own best friend. Like, I was realizing I was always making other people feel good, and people came to me and loved on me and needed my guidance and help. And then I spoke to them the way I would anyone else, right? I shared how much I loved about them and boosted their self-confidence and stop this, stop that, stop this, that. And then I thought, well, why am I not doing that to myself? Why am I not my own best friend? Why am I listening to these weird thoughts and not going, wait a minute? So I think that really helped. and then started learning about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and just being more aware of my thoughts, because I'm sure you've researched this, but I've heard, and I mean, this is an estimate, 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of them slip past us. Like, have you ever driven home and then realized, wow, that was quick, or I don't even remember making it all the way. You were just kind of in la la land. And I started going, whoa, that's dangerous. And then I realized, how many other thoughts am I letting slip away? Because every time you have a thought, you're making new connections. And as you make new connections, they become beliefs, because their thoughts and beliefs are repetitions of thoughts, right? Beliefs are just repetitions of thoughts. And so as you have those beliefs, you start to have a feeling in your body, and then you have a feeling and a mind and a thought all mixed into one. So I think learning and understanding how it all works together has really helped me, because when I started to feel bad, not sure why I was feeling that bad, I started going, oh, I'm probably not thinking in a more positive way. And as soon as I flipped the switch and started thinking more positively, the rest of me started to feel better. So I think that's really what helped me a lot, coming back to center and being really mindful and aware of what I was actually thinking.
I can actually say, Delshad, you've done an excellent job of, I guess, figuring that out yourself, because it is not always that easy. And I say that because I work with the mind as an NLP master coach and hypnotherapist and so on. And for you to have actually, through reading and through learning about the mind, actually being able to make such shifts and become so aware and awake, and then turn that around, I would say that's quite a rare thing, because often we need help with that. And as you say, our mind is just running on auto pilot all the time. And we are, just in a pattern of doing things. And most of those thoughts we have are subconscious. It's actually not in our conscious mind. So for you to have actually kind of made more aware and become consciously aware of it, I take my hat off to you, because a lot of people need help with that. It was interesting too, you said that, have you ever, you were saying, just like I'm sitting here listening to you, and I say exactly what you say in terms of, have you ever driven somewhere, and when you get there, you go, oh my goodness, I can't even drive that I drove past this service station or this shop. So we are, majority of the time, we're actually in a state of trance. Did you know that, Delshad?
Yes, because when I woke up, I realized too that I was doing the exact same thing in the same order all the time. I'm like, that's a pattern, that's a habit, right? And because they're so ingrained, you don't even have to think about it anymore. So I started brushing my teeth with the other hand. I'm mostly left-handed for most things, but I was taught with my right, and I think I should have been left-handed. So I think I'm constantly changing things up. I brush my teeth with my left now that I used to do with my right, or I switch things up. I throw the ball or kick with this. I could do both with the soccer ball, but I started testing things. And because it was harder, you had to be more focused and aware of what you were doing, because it was more difficult. And now watching my kids struggle with, hand-eye coordination, holding their pencils and pens right, and catching a ball without closing their eyes. I'm like, you got to keep them open. If you follow your eyes with the ball, you'll catch it. And when you have your eyes closed because you're afraid, it bounces off your face. So I started to be really conscious of what I was doing and how I was thinking. And of course, it's a challenge every day, but I find it fascinating and I love studying it. And I'm just learning more and more. I feel like I'm no expert, but I'm becoming one.
Yeah, very good. I like that. It's what you're telling yourself that will become your reality. So I love that. And did you know why there's white lines on the road when you're driving?
No, maybe to keep you on one side of the road.
That's a weird question. But do you know that it's actually hypnotic? and the mind knows to stay on one side of the road. So if you can be literally falling asleep, and when you're about to cross that white line, have you ever done that where you go, oh, it kind of literally wakes you up. So it's very hypnotic. It puts you in a hypnotic trance. There's a reason for that white line. It's incredible, isn't
Wow,
it?
yeah, and the bumps on the road too, because a lot of people were actually falling asleep, and thank goodness they added those to make you aware. But I find that fascinating. Thanks, that's something new. It hadn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah. So mindset's obviously incredibly important, and I myself has been interested in mind for a very long time. I remember I must have been around 15, and I came across this book in Swedish. You become what you think, basically. And that was the start of my journey. And when I was competing in rowing, I was doing rowing as sport, and that was actually the thing that brought me to Australia when I competed at the World Rowing Championships here in 1990. But before all the races and stuff like that, I was always listening to things that were going to help me. I was doing a lot of visualizations. So I always, in my mind, visualized how the whole race was going to turn out. So I did a lot of mind training. And then later on in life, when I came to Australia, and I eventually got into kind of the fitness industry, and started doing a bit of personal training. And during that time, I always listened to people's self-talk. And, you hear that a lot when you're around people you train, because a lot of people are very negative about themselves, and they focus on what they don't want. So it made me, as there I was as a fitness personal trainer, and I was actually during the sessions were kind of coaching through people, working on the mindset a little bit as well. But that developed more and more of an interest. I thought, well, it's all well and good training a person or coaching a person, but really when it comes down to any changes you're going to have, and if you're going to develop a superpower, you really have to address the mindset. And that set me on a path of doing all the coaching and the NLP and that. And that's really where it starts. If we're going to, if we're going to become superwoman or superman or develop superpower, we really have to address the mind, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And when I say superpower, I grew up loving superheroes. I love the idea that a normal person could all of a sudden flip and change into this higher, more magnificent person. And so that's why I have the superpower, but it's really your passion. And when you say passion, people say, I don't know what I have a passion in. I'm like, well, slow down. Think about what energizes you. And that's what comes back to feeling. What makes you feel good? What could you talk about every day? What could you do all the time? And, there's people that could shoot, photographs all the time, people that could cook or talk like we are, or drive in a race cars, things like that. And I think people don't realize their superpower because they feel like, oh, it's a thing I have to do every day. Well, no, it's not anything you have to, it's that you need to do. And I think helping people find that in them, because a lot of times I think too, one of the things I see in people that they feel overworked, they feel overlooked, and they don't feel heard. And whether that's a mom at home who all of a sudden, you wanted to be a mom, but then you are in it and people forget about you. They love the kids, they think they're so cute and this, but they lose themselves, and then they don't ask for what they need, and then they almost don't know what they need. So working with people to come out of their shell, to find what energizes them, whether it could be you want to be a better mom, better friend, better coworker, or find that passion that you can actually turn into a side business or a full-time position. And I think that's I know that's who I want to work with and who I really want to serve. Because if I did it, maybe I could help someone else do it. Maybe I could help somebody get there and
Mm,
feel better. Because really, what is it? A feeling. Because when
mm,
you're talking about mindset and getting that person to work out, why are they working out? Because they don't feel good. Why is somebody maybe not getting that job? Because they don't feel like they're good enough,
mm, mm.
right? And I want people to stop thinking that their thoughts are facts. They're not. They're things, but they're not facts. Most of the time, what you're thinking is not true
Mm,
about yourself.
mm.
So I
Yeah,
feel like if I got there, then why not try to help others?
yeah. And when we have those thoughts, you said thoughts are not facts. And that is so true. I often talk about my partner about that. My partner is a counselor and also a CBT therapist, and he works a lot with that. And he always says to me, thoughts are not facts. So that saying, once you are aware of what you're thinking consciously, you can
Mm-hmm.
start to dispute what you're thinking. Is actually what I'm thinking true? And what I often say as a coach is, how does that serve you? And how does it make you feel when you're thinking that way? Is it really true? And once we start to address that, which I think you've been excellent at doing yourself, as I said, so many people are actually, it needs to be kind of led and kind of taken through processes so they realize the patterns, because a lot of the time we have no idea. Um,
No, and it's not your fault. It's this subconscious pattern you created in your mind.
mm,
Like I'm teaching the girls about having a growth mindset and like riding a bike. You do it many times. You do it many times, and you do it enough. It's going to connect in your brain, and
mm,
you won't have to worry about it again. All new things take time, and I think I don't know if you haven't talked about the mind body connection, but when you start making those changes, it's uncomfortable because
mm,
thoughts and feelings work together. So if you start feeling uncomfortable or start feeling nervous, like to get on stage or do something that you have never done before, that's good. That means you're changing.
yeah.
And I think that's another part of it. And when there's a quote, there's two quotes that I think were tipping points for me when
Mm,
I was trying to make a change. One is by Henry Ford. Have you heard this one? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I was like, oh, oh my goodness. It's such a simple, obvious statement, but right? Like, but we all seem to do the same thing every day.
I
So,
know,
like I
right?
said, just getting up right when I open my eyes, I say what I'm grateful for. And I
Mm,
don't think three things, but what I do is I think of what I did the day before. So
mm,
then now I'm conscious of what I did today all
mm,
day long so that the next morning I can wake up and be grateful for it. So
yeah,
there I am being present again. And then
yeah.
the other quote I'm sure you've heard of is what you think you become, what you feel you attract, and what you imagine you create. And that was by Buddha.
Mm.
I couldn't agree more. And what do you think?
We've got a lot of their, you know, should I say gurus or whatever that way back has said very powerful things, and we hear them, and it's one thing to hear something, but it's one thing to actually really fully live it and understand it and take it on board. And the same thing comes with positive thinking. Like we can think positively, but if we don't really, should I nearly call it embody what we're actually saying, it's not going to work. And my partner is often on me about positive thinking doesn't work because we got to address, deeper underlying issues as well. And a lot of the time, the past, unfortunately, we've experienced like big things that have caused feelings like anger and sadness and fear and hurt and guilt. And if they're really big, they keep presenting themselves in the now and in the future. If we don't kind of lighten the load of them a little bit. So sometimes I have to take people through, for example, a technique called timeline therapy, and sometimes AFT. I'm sure you've heard of AFT as well, Aroma Freedom Technique.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simpler version, kind of in some ways, than timeline therapy, but it's getting people to basically travel back on their timeline and discover events where they had that unwarranted feeling of, we'll say, anger. And you take them on a process on that, and that kind of lightens the load, and the client gets realizations from that. And then so when they then in the future experience an event which they normally would have had that unwarranted feeling of fear or anger, it's not really there anymore, or they have a different kind of view on it. So sometimes people, obviously, if people really feel stuck, obviously it's really, really important to reach out to someone that can really help them with that. Because if we keep, as you say, we keep repeating patterns, and we keep doing the same thing, obviously we're going to get stuck, aren't we?
Yeah, you're almost living in the past.
Yeah.
Your present is really not your present. You're living in the past. You're doing the same things you've always done, having those same feelings over and over, and you're not aware of it. So it's like this pattern that keeps going, but you're not really being present. Like if you are remembering a sad event that happened before, your mind doesn't know it's not happening. Your mind can't discern whether it's happening now or not. So have you ever just sat there, like, unfortunately, my mom has passed, and if I think about it too long, I start to get extremely sad, and I go, but stop. And I check myself and go, wait, it didn't just happen. But that vision of it happening has made me come to that feeling. And I think that's where people also miss the boat, where try to stay present. You're allowed to feel it. Maybe you need to go through it. You're allowed to have those hard days, but don't focus so much on that. Yeah. And the other thing that comes into play is visualization. I love that you talked about that. People always go, well, how do you manifest things? And what is that all about? Well, and then as you learn with manifestation, you can't just think about what you want. You have to feel it. You're like, well, how do you do that if I've never done it? You just use your imagination. Think about when you were a kid. You had these like wild adventures. My girls are having tea parties. For me, I had a Persian carpet, and I would imagine I'd flying around the world on that thing, and it was so real. It's like your mind would take you to those places, because you didn't have any inhibitions. So if you could start, like, imagine you want to be a speaker, a podcaster, a coach, a photographer. If you imagine doing it, and then imagine how good you'd feel when you do it, maybe you'll just get there.
Yeah, and that is that's really an art. I love visualization. I've actually run quite a few vision board workshops where I take people through that practice. And, kids have that automatically. And for some reason, maybe it's the system, the school, of how it is, that sort of doesn't nurture that in the way it really should be nurtured. But that is where the power really lies. If people realize how incredible, powerful beings we are and what we can manifest, it's about bringing those vibrations into what it is. We, if we basically can do it in our mind, we can do it in person. And I believe that some people, Delshad, have got a more natural kind of a way of doing that. I know myself, I've always done that very easily, have got a very good imagination. It's come natural to me. I always play with that, and I bring feelings into it. And I know so many times that it's worked for me, but I can also recall, Delshad, times where it hasn't worked for me, because I've been worrying about things, and I've been bringing feelings into the things I worry about, and that in fact has turned into reality. And a lot of people don't actually realize that worry doesn't serve us at all. And do you know that worry is just thinking about future in a way, you're thinking about something, you're worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet. And how stupid is that not to do?
It's the what ifs, right? What if this happens? And what if this happens? And you think of the negative, but you could also say, what if I win $1 million?
Mm.
What if I am that great speaker? What if, I mean, flip the switch.
Mm.
Stop about what you don't want. Start thinking what you do want.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that pimple on my face. Oh, I have really clear skin.
Mm.
I mean, just changing the simplest things,
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
simplest things.
But I often hear that some people, when I start to work with them, they go, but, I kind of know that, but I still say that negative thing. But that's not really what I mean. But do you know that the subconscious mind is a mind that really likes clear instructions? And it basically just says, yep, that's right. You're telling me that. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. So the subconscious
And I'm
mind
going to make it
can't.
true.
Yeah, it's true. You're telling me that. And that's the beauty of hypnotherapy, because when we do hypnotherapy, it's very clear demands. So it's not just soft languaging. Like a lot of people think, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to, we're going to now be very, very sleepy. It's the tonality of the voice. But by the time I work on what needs to be addressed with a person, it's very direct, and I use a command voice. So there's a lot to that when you speak to the subconscious minds. That's very, very different to, I guess, having a normal conversation. But if we can bring that into our own awareness and be our own, I'm just thinking, imagine we can see ourselves as our own hypnotherapist in some ways and go, what am I telling myself?
Yes. And I think that's where affirmations come into play, and mantras.
Yeah.
Like, learn and understand exactly what you want to happen, or something and they have to be short and sweet. You can't make them long. And I want this short and sweet. If you can repeat those things over and over, your subconscious is collecting them. So at night, lots of times I listen to something with my headphones of repetitive affirmations as I fall asleep. And man, I feel like that has even helped my subconscious. And I do it with the two. I have them look in the mirror and they, first off, tell you if you love yourself. I love you.
Yeah.
And they laugh and giggle. And I'm like, no, no, no. You want you to say it. And then I'm brave, I'm strong, I'm kind, I'm fun, I'm funny, over and over, because those are the things I feel like a lot of us didn't get when we were kids. And if they say it enough, especially at such a young age, because what they say, from 0 to 2, you're living in theta, maybe. And then from like all the way up to 7, you're just kind of floating. You're just absorbing. You're like a sponge absorbing everything. So that's where I'm like, oh goodness, I hope that I put patterns in their brain and help them have a good self awareness of themselves and self-confidence, that they can take it going forward. And at least as they move forward, I can be there to help pick them up.
Wow. I think your kids are very blessed, Delshad, to have someone that is so aware. Like, I'm just thinking myself, I think back to how was my parents at the time. They probably had no clue. I've had to kind of figure it out myself. But as you say, we've got that imprinting period up until we're 7 years of age, and we are just like sponges. I know I've got a grandchild that's 8 months old now, and I think it's to be a parent. I think that nearly we need to do a course before we become a parent to actually understand the mind, and that we make sure we feed our kids stuff that's really going to help serve them in their lives. But of course, everyone's got to learn as well. But I often think if you are, or you've been in a really good, upbringing and been really supportive, it certainly can make the world of difference when it comes to our mindset. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just want people to be able to take the time. Here's another thing I always say. Remember, you're the most important person in your life.
Mm.
People need to say it over and over. I'm the most important person in my life, because if you're not good, you're not going to be good to anybody else. And it's not selfish. It's not selfish. Being good to you in any way you can is okay. Standing up for you is okay. Having boundaries, whether it's the 50 million questions your kids ask you a day, or your husband needs this, or your husband needs that, or your wife or whoever, your significant other needs something. It's okay to say, you know what, I need 10 minutes to myself.
Yeah.
No one's allowed to come talk to me. No one's allowed to do it. I want to read a book. I want to sit on the bed. I want to just brush my teeth by myself. Any of it. Being good to yourself is going to help you be good to the rest of the world around you. And if you have those good thoughts, which then lead to those good feelings, which then create the patterns that you want, you're going to soar. And that's what I really want for everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, isn't it interesting that we become so influenced by the outside? So we start to lose really who we are, and we start to compare ourselves. I guess we are being bombarded so much through the media. A lot of girls feel pressure. They got to look a certain way. They actually believe a lot of the images that are there, and we start to compare ourselves rather than nurture what we are really good at. And I really think it's a very freeing feeling when we start to let go of all those kind of demands we have on ourselves, that we're going to be a certain way, we're going to look a certain way. If we one day can just throw that all out the door and just go, here I am, this is me, take it or leave it. How lovely, and what a freeing feeling that is. Hey?
And I couldn't agree more. And I can say that I'm mostly like that. I'm just like everyone else. I have self-conscious days. But and like social media and photography, right? When you look at those images on a magazine, those have all been retouched.
Yeah.
All the stretch marks are gone, all the imperfected bumps in their leg or their arm, or the skin. Nobody has that beautiful skin. It just doesn't exist. And I think once you can just let loose, and then I think that's what I've done, is like, here I am, take it or leave it. And it is scary. It's not easy. But once you do it, you feel so good. You feel good, and you attract like people, right? I am attracting so many people lately, like friend requests, simple things like that on social media. Obviously, if I was out and about, I'd be making new friends, but being home, I'm having more people reach out and thank me for something I've said, or a reel or a story I've done, or in my own groups that I've created, just a positive mindset or a challenge. I challenge them to think differently. They're like, whoa, I really needed this. So if you can just be you, you're going to help people you won't even realize you're helping.
Yeah.
Just some people are watching, or a lot of people are watching, but they're not saying because they're nervous. So you are impacting people. And I think you are, for sure. This is so wonderful. What a great podcast.
Oh, thank you, Delshad. That's lovely to hear. And I'm that kind of person. I just throw myself into things at all. That's always been me. I get ideas and I go, yeah, I really want to do that. And I guess I'm kind of fairly blessed that way, that I've never really worried about what people think about me. So that's a good thing and skill to have. And I was talking to a friend a little while ago, and we were talking about speaking in front of a lot of people, and this person was a little bit worried about it. And I said, do you know what? I would not have a nervous bone in my body. You can ask me go up and speak in front of thousands and thousands of people, and I just don't get nervous. And we were kind of talking about that, and I said, well, what other people think about me is their business. I'm only me. So that's just a reflection on them. And I think if people can think that way, well, like, I honestly don't know where that comes from. But I just I just don't take it on, and therefore I don't get nervous. I just throw myself in. Different story though, if I'm asked to do perhaps an exam or something where I feel that people are judging me, and I go, I don't like when people are judging me because I'm still good at what I'm doing. It's funny. I just, in those situations, I don't really like kind of being tested. If someone were to sit here and they're going to look at how I do things and give me feedback and be really critical, yes, of course, I'll take that on. But that's probably the only thing I would be a little bit kind of nervous about. But speaking in front of big crowds, I actually love it. I just throw myself out, and the more people, the better. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've done a fair bit of speaking, wellness retreats, and I used to do theatre, which comes handy. I think maybe it comes from there in my younger years. And I'll tell you a story, Josh. It's quite funny because I was this very shy kind of little girl. I was that introvert. And at school, I was quiet. I was, a good student, but I didn't say much and stuff like that. And we were going to do a school show, a theatre show. And my mum and dad and all the parents had never seen me do anything more than being the quiet girl. And I had the head role in this show. I was the teacher and had to be very assertive, very expressive. And I remember people just sitting there in shock going, who's this Corinne? Like, this is incredible. Like, where did that come from? So it's interesting. I think maybe once you put yourself in a role, I'm very good like that, Maybe it's a little bit different if someone, really talks to me personally about really personal stuff. Maybe a little bit different. I don't know, but that's how I feel. The other thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about before about, we feeling like we got to compare and us to other women and things like that. And I'm sitting here going, do you know what? There's something that happens with women when they reach a certain age. And I actually don't know how old you are, but I know I'm older than you because I am a grandmother and I've got grown-up kids. And am turning, I believe, I nearly forgotten how old I am going to be, but I believe I'm turning 52 this year. And but the thing is, I think as women, we get to a certain point in life where it's like we start to really accept ourselves for who we are. And if we're not, well, I know some women struggle until they're in their 70s, 80s. And I think, well, isn't it about time you accept who you are now, darling? Because we can't. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's a support system too, right? Like, one of the things that helped me get there was my best friends, my girlfriends, the people that I could count on, my guy friends, the ones I could say that would catch me if I said this or that poorly about myself. They go, oh, no, that's totally not true. And that helps a lot. And a lot of people don't have it.
Yeah.
A lot of people may not know or too shy to say. And I was going to say about, or wanted to add about when you were saying speaking, I always tell people with fear, let's think about this. Fear has the same physical body reaction as excitement. So when I'm nervous, I go, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm excited to do this thing. I'm excited to jump on the podcast. I'm excited to start talking in Clubhouse or giving that speech or motivating or coaching, because it's the same feeling. Your heart races, you get a little giddy, maybe your hands get clammy, whatever it may be. So if you just flip the switch on it in your mind, you actually won't be as nervous. You might still have that feeling, but it won't be as scary as it will be exciting.
That's right. And I think often when I start to feel that feeling of fear or that I'm being kind of judged or people listen to me, when that happens, it's usually when I'm in my head. I kind of find myself that I'm kind of watching. I'm out here watching and I'm actually not really in here and in my heart. And then it's like I'm listening to myself and I'm starting to judge myself. Isn't it interesting? That's what happens to me, rather than just go with the flow. Go with the flow and see where you end up. That's a
Be
kind
present.
Yeah, be present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop thinking everything else. Start being in the moment. What's happening now is actually happening now, not what that fear was from before, not what's going to happen in the future. And another thing before you're going to do something big is breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe. People take such shallow breaths. Take a big breath in and take a big breath out before you're going to get on stage or give that talk or be interviewed or whatever it may be. You know, my husband's been an interviewer for different positions within his company, and he's always saying people look so nervous, and I'm like, yeah, they just forget to breathe before they, and it's okay to pause. Like if you aren't sure exactly what you want to say, don't just mumble over it, you know.
Yeah.
Just pause. No one's going to fault you for it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that have helped me.
Yeah. Silence is really powerful too. I often think about that when I have conversations with people, and also when I coach people, where you really got to be really listening and just be really present in the moment. That's really what coaching is all about. You have to be really there and just, sometimes be really, really quiet. And it's a skill. And if we don't have the skill, it's a skill that we can acquire as well. It's really, really powerful. And I think about it in the term of also, if someone says something to you, and we have this kind of thing that we often react to things very quickly, rather than just maybe counting to 5, be silent,
Yes.
take a deep breath, and then give yourself that chance to just stop and pause and not act
Yes.
on autopilot, because we do that, and things can often come out wrong, and that's often when arguments, I think, also happens in between people, because people just react rather than kind of listen and just take a moment to reflect and then respond the way we want to respond, rather than just in a reactive, perhaps a little bit more negative way.
Yeah, and taking that deep breath does bring you back to the moment. You know, think about it when there's a baby crying and you jingle some keys or you do something like that, and it stops them in the moment. They stop all that they're doing, kind of shakes them up, and then they can come back to the present moment. Like, you're okay, it's okay, mama's right here.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think we should flip our brains back around and go, oh, those things work. Well, they work as adults too, and that's usually through breath work. I really feel like taking that deep breath, stop, right, bite your tongue, bite your tongue. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, because regrets are, they're tough. They're tough. And I think that's a lot of the issue with mindset too, is you regret so many things. No, it's just a learning experience. You made a mistake. So what? Move forward.
Yeah. And just breath is obviously life. Breath is everything. If we can't breathe, there's no life. It's really, really important, and it calms us down. So anyone that doesn't do any breath work or meditation that incorporates a little breath work, I would highly suggest that. But it also breaks patterns as well. And did you know, Delshad, in terms of, for example, when I deal with people that want to lose weight, for example, what I get them usually, before you reach for something, if we talk about food, for example, we go and reach for something in the cupboard, and before we know it, we've eaten the whole chocolate bar. So what I would get people to do is to, as soon as they get that, is about to reach, I say, have a glass of water. Okay. Ask yourself, and I get them to ask themselves certain questions. And then basically their subconscious mind will answer the question. And depending on what the answer is, they get to do certain things. So that's making a person very aware. So we've got to have these kind of things that are going to break our state so we become more aware of it. So I suppose that is, if we can develop that skill, we're way on the way to develop our superpowers, I think. Yeah. So we have been talking for a long time, and there's been amazing things coming up in this discussion here today and conversation. Is there anything you want to finish off sharing with a listener, Delshad, that you have on your heart and your mind?
Well, honestly, just to start.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? Like, I feel like begin now. Don't worry about when, don't set a date, just start now. Little things, create tiny habits, and then back those habits together, because that's where you're going to make the change. I started being more aware. Then when I was aware, I'd start doing something else. And then if I did that something else, I've added something to that. And so 3 different things have just now changed that have made me better, smarter, aware. And then I started to feel really good. So just start now. Take the time for yourself. Maybe that first step is just listening to what you really want and creating that, what everybody calls it, selfish behavior, but really making yourself the most important person in your life.
Yeah. Fantastic. It's been so much fun having heartfelt conversations with you, Delshad. And I can't wait to get to know you a little bit more as well. And I'd like to thank all the listeners here today, everyone that's been watching this. If you want to reach out to either Delshad or myself, you can find all the information in the information below or above. And so thank you so much, Delshad, for joining me today. And thanks to all of you listeners for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I've had such a good time, and I hope that we can do it again.
All right. Have a really lovely day. Thank you so much.